On this show, we are joined by well-known restaurant owner and hospitality consultant Paul Treyvaud, a voice from Spoil the Vote, and we'll be discussing Taoiseach Martin and Tánaiste Harris's flip to the far right and how open borders affect communities, businesses and tourism across Ireland. I'm Alex Sheridan, and this is Ireland Reports. Well, thank you for joining me on the show, Paul. It's a pleasure to have you on. First, we are just going to roll with some clips from the Tánaiste on his response to immigration, where he seems to have just done a complete flip on what a stance used to be.
Migration numbers are too high, and I think that is really an issue that needs to be considered in a very serious way by government. I think one of the reasons they're so high is that there are too many people who come to this country and who are told they do not have a right to be here, and it is taking too long for them to be removed from the country. But I think we have to be honest. I think we have to listen to the people of this country who have said, who I believe are saying to us, look, we used to live in a country where around 3,000 people sought international protection each year. That number has gone to in and around 20,000, sometimes a little above it, sometimes a little below it. That is a very, very significant increase, and it is too high.
Well, Paul, what do you think of that? That does seem like a complete flip to me. Maybe it was a result of the success of Spoil the Vote, which of course you were strongly involved in.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that clip, it's actually laughable. Is the only way I could describe it, and it's 100% down to the Spoil the Vote, because I don't know, our Tánaiste and our Taoiseach, are they now far right, racist, Nazis? What else did they call us? All these names that they labelled us for the last 2-3 years for saying the exact same thing. And now all of a sudden he comes out and says it as flippantly as, sure, that's what we always talk, lads. It's comical, I have to admit.
Yeah, you might say that they're trying to gaslight us. Would you agree with that?
There's definitely, I mean, being involved in hospitality all my life, I kind of psychoanalyze people's facial expressions, and kind of, I watch them to see, are they looking for something before they have to ask? And Simon Harris there, like it's as I said, it's just comical what they're coming out with. I think the first thing that they should have done, and by the way, as I said, it's 100% down to the Spoil the Vote, but the first thing that they should have done was to apologize to everybody in the country that they labeled all these, horrible names for the last 2-3 years. Because let's be very clear that nobody has an issue with, where you're from, the color of your skin, who you bow down and pray to, as long as you're working here in the country, you're contributing positively to society. Nobody cares about anything else. But when you see the amount of freeloaders that are coming in, and that's all anybody ever pointed out, to go, well, I'm not so sure these guys are genuine applicants here. And now they're coming out and admitting, we've all been saying for the last 2-3 years. So if they came out and apologized to the people, that they called all these names and then said that, you'd kind of go, all right, okay, fair enough. Maybe they have learned one of these amazing lessons that they keep telling us about.
Yeah, it does seem to be a little bit of panic on their end. We're seeing across the Western world, there's sort of a collapse of the centre-left, centre-right, and whatever coalition they try to build. We saw, of course, with Andrew Cuomo over in New York, wasn't able to hold the centre against their capital name, Zoran Mandani, the new governor-elect of New York, who is quite far left. We have a similar situation in Ireland with Catherine Connolly winning by a substantial margin against the Fine Gael candidate. So maybe they're lurching to the right because they realise that their coalition of old is falling apart. But I guess my question to you, Paul, is Spoil the Vote was a better organised campaign than certainly Jim Gavin's was and some of the official candidates this election. Do you see Spoil the Vote forming into anything else, maybe into a new party which will snatch up that section of the electorate who were just not satisfied with Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael?
Yeah, I think, first of all, Spoil the Vote kind of belonged to everybody in the country that stood up and made a statement. A few people organised protest marches, and some people didn't want to be at those marches. They just, that's not their kind of scene. And what we did was, by doing the press release, is we put our names and our faces to it, where people could relate. Most of us are, business owners, or then you've got Michael McCarthy, he's got a huge social media following as well. And what we did was basically saying, we don't want to be here. And none of us have ever spoiled our vote before, but you've given us no choice. And I remember there was a question asked at the press release, say, are you not afraid you're going to set precedent here? And the answer was very simple. We're not the ones setting precedent. The only ones who are doing that is the government, by thinking they can get away with this, by saying, as I said, it's like the Henry Ford. You can have whatever color car you want as long as it's black. So you can have whatever presidential candidate you want as long as it's one of the ones we tell you. And people were just disgusted. The amount of messages that I got on social media saying, we've never spoiled our vote, but there's 7 in our family that are going to do it now. There's 12 of us here. I was talking to the guys in the office. There's 5 of us here. And I was telling the team, I was going, this is going to be huge. This is way bigger than what we think. I can see on my own social media platform. And I think what it did was it sent a message to the government to say, you have a problem here, guys. You've treated us like absolute imbeciles for way too long. And this is our way of now showing you just how many of us are dissatisfied with what you're doing. A huge amount of Gardaí got in contact with me to say, because one of the videos I put up on my social media platforms were, if you're a guard, you can't protest, you can't do anything because of the nature of the job that you have. But you can protest this way because there's nobody looking at you in a ballot box. And that's the level of frustration with just one frontline sector here in the country. And people just turned around and just went, we're deliberately getting off our chair to go out and spoil our vote. And what's been phenomenal since is the amount of people that have contacted me saying, I was afraid to do it because, RTE mentioned it might be against the law and it's not the right thing to do. And I really wish I went out. And I've gotten the same amount of messages again. So that spoiled the vote. The government are a lot of things. Stupid is not one of them. They will see that, a percentage of Jim Gavin's were also a spoiled vote. A big percentage of Catherine Connolly's were also a spoil vote because that was going against the government too. And everybody who wanted to but didn't come out and do it. So that number of around 215,000 is far greater. And they know that. And that's a real panic for the government.
And we have it on screen here. We have the numbers, which is the total electorate representation. So 52% were non-voters. And if you actually look at of the people who could vote and didn't vote, altogether, actually, Catherine Connolly only got 26.4% of people who can vote in this country, and Heather Humphreys is down at 12.3%. So that is actually quite significant.
Yeah, look, the left are claiming a massive victory. It's like if you go out and play a team and the other guys don't show up, and you go, geez, we've got a 3-0 walkover. We're brilliant. So you've got all these different, people before profit, Social Democrats, all these parties who said this is a massive win for the left. But anybody with half a brain knows, well, it's nowhere near the win you're shouting and trying to claim for it. The biggest win out of this election was to spoil the vote because it made the government sit up and think. Because I remember before, and people have an awful habit of forgetting things, before the actual vote, the government were trying to kind of like make a mockery of it. And sure, nobody's going to do that. And there's not going to be, there's a couple of nut jobs did a press conference, and there's a couple of other fellas who did a couple of marches and protests. There won't be that much big. They had it down at around, first of all, 6% is what they said. But then there was other polls coming out saying probably 2%. And if we get maybe 10,000 votes, that's about the extent of it. And the entire nation walked up to the government and slapped them straight across the face and just went, now, you didn't see that one coming. And that's why you're seeing Micheál Martin. That's why you're seeing the Tánaiste coming out now with a huge shift in change. And immigration is the first one that they're talking about. But you're going to see them coming out with more things because now they're going to have to try to appeal to that vote.
Yeah, I think you're certainly right. It was Declan Ganley, when we had him on the show, he reckons that 25% of the entire electorate who voted for Connolly, that's the ceiling which the far left and the hard left in this country can hit. And he thinks that they're not going to get any further than that. And I think it's because of issues like immigration and immigration policy, that how it affects society, which is it's consistently ranked as one of the top issues. I think it comes beneath housing sometimes, which is also directly related. So what I actually wanted to ask you is how government policy has affected your home of Kerry and small business owners like yourself. I have a background in my professional career where a couple of years ago I was reviewing grants by small businesses as grant applications from the government to cover losses that had been made because they're used to having a certain amount of tourists with a bit of money showing up to places in Kerry and renting out their kayaking for the day, their kayaking business for the day. And you have so many asylum seekers in these hotel rooms that they're losing quite literally half of their business because there's nobody coming into places like Kerry to use them. Has this affected you? Is this something that you've seen frontline on the ground?
Yeah, look, when this all started about 3 years ago, it was about 3-4 months into it, and I turned around and went, population of Killarney has increased by about 12% in the last 3-4 months. I said, is that not ringing any alarm bells for anybody? And this is like summertime. And in the winter, a lot of these hotels would close down. And I went, like, this could climb a hell of a lot higher. And if that happens, well, then we have a huge problem going on in the country. And again, I was called every name under the sun. And I just kept saying, look, it's not my fault I can spot a trend before you guys see a trend. And has the government done any feasibility study as to how many of these people they can put into towns and villages without drastically altering the dynamics of that town and village? And the simple answer was no. And again, let me be really clear here. I have no issue with any accommodation provider who has done this, because the money is absolutely off the charts what they're offering. It's an insane rate that the government are giving. And I have no issue with anybody who's come into the country, because if we were offered that to go over to France, sure, why wouldn't we do it? So I don't blame them. The 100% blame lies with the government for their ridiculous policies. And Killarney went up to about an increase of about 40% of its population within 8 months. It doesn't take a genius to figure out how much that's going to really affect the town and village. And then the basic laws of economics kick in. So you've got supply and demand. So we now have less rooms in the town for tourism. So the prices go up because the demand is still the same. There's still the same amount of people looking to come into the town, which means what? Well, those who are coming are paying more for their accommodation. So they have less money to spend on the high street. So then you see the bars, the restaurants, the Jarvies, the knick-knack shops. All of a sudden, they're the ones who suffer, purely because of what a government did, because nobody had the balls to turn around and go, whoa, 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 stop. This is enough. Which is exactly what Simon Harris is saying now. That 20,000, it's too many. We should be told you this 3 years ago, Simon, and you just label us every kind of name under the sun. Don't ever forget what Leo Varadkar said. Nobody gets to veto who comes into their town or village except for him, because he'll say, no, they're going in there and deal with it. So yeah, it's had a huge effect on tourism. Tourism is decimated.
That's absolutely true, and it's not just immigration that I think the government has had a huge negative effect on the tourist industry, and I guess the restaurant industry as well. We've seen that statistics from the CSO show that a standard kilo of meat has risen from €17 to €22 per kilo in the past year. So that is, according to the Irish Independent, a rise of about 23%. Specifically, steak has gone up 23%. That is going to affect restaurants as well. They're going to have to raise their prices. You do have there's the VAT relief this year, but things like that is what is causing inflation. And then of course before that you had the lockdowns, opening up and lockdown, just constantly. It just seems to be that the government is an anti-business government, and that might be the gap in the market where maybe a new party can come in and try exploit.
Yeah, look, everything you said is 100% correct there. Like the cost of doing business. I'm a small operator here in Killarney, and it's costing me pretty much €100,000 more to operate my business now than what it did in 2019 and before. Now, the rule of maths in business is you got to take 4 times the cost in order to cover your costs. So am I up €400,000 since 2019? Not a chance. Not a chance are we up. So that's why you're seeing so many businesses that are struggling now. And everything is just going up and up and up. And I went up and I met the Minister for Trade, Enterprise, Employment and Tourism, and I was absolutely looked square in the eye and told the minimum wage will not be increased. And I'm saying to him, and again, that's a big issue with people who say, well, he doesn't want to pay his staff anymore. And I'm going, that's not it. The guy who's getting the extra money kind of in his gross salary, he's actually down money because now everything has to go up to compensate that. So the person who they're trying to benefit is actually is not benefiting at all. And I'm saying remove them from tax brackets. There's so many other ways you can do it, because if you make me increase my wages, I got to increase my prices, and I'm screwing the punter coming in again, and I'm making nothing out of it. So there's so many different ways we can actually really tackle what's going on in businesses here in the country. But there's no doubt about it, the government do not care about the small self-employed family-run business, because if they genuinely did, they'd fix it. It's actually much easier to fix it than to do what they're doing and screwing so many. And we're seeing it all around the country. So many businesses going bust because it's no longer viable for people to, take the risk and try and trade out of it.
That's absolutely true. I definitely do think that there is a gap to be exploited there. Maybe you get some sort of progressive Democrat sort of type party coming in. It's interesting you say about the minimum wage. If you look over at the US, there never seems to be a problem with employing waiters and busboys and people in the background who work in the kitchens, because their minimum wage is much lower, and they have a very interesting system where obviously Americans tip a lot. If you are not making the minimum wage, let's say their minimum wage is like $10, $12 an hour, through your tips and wage that the restaurant is covering, the restaurant has to cover the gap to make it at least $12. But effectively, they're only paying their staff about $5 each. So it becomes a lot easier to do business and keep people in employment. And on the flip side, they actually tend to make a little bit more as a waiter. When I was working as a waiter in Chicago during my J1, there's people I was with who were living in like luxury downtown apartments, and their main job was like pulling in 60,000 euro a year as a waiter from tips alone, you know?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm in hospitality all my life. And when I started off and working in hotels, like there was no minimum wage back then, obviously. But the wage cost was coming in around 18, 19% of your turnover. And if it went any higher than that, the GM would pull me in and say, you know, you've got your maths wrong here, sort it out. The minimum, like the wage cost now for small businesses is anywhere from 45 to 50%. So again, you don't need to be that smart to realize that that's not sustainable. And that's what's continuously happening. And that's why you're seeing so many people close. You know, people similar to my own age or maybe even a little bit older going, what am I doing this for? There's literally no point to doing this. And that's why, like, a lot of businesses are going because of that reason. A lot of businesses are going because they just aren't sustainable anymore. And it's a direct result from government policies throughout COVID. When you think about it, how they shut us down and what they did to us. When they turned around and they said, listen, bars and restaurants can stay open in hotels, but not standalone bars and restaurants. And I got both Micheál Martin and Leo Varadkar to admit that in the Dáil and in the Seanad, to turn around and say there's no scientific proof, you know, that it's any more dangerous in a standalone bar or restaurant, but we're doing it anyway.
Yeah, it just seems to be that they're almost like to go on a power trip or something. I suppose the thing I
just want to touch on again, Alex, there about you're saying about is there room for a new political party? It's a bit like when you see these TV chefs that say they're self-taught TV or chefs, you know, and I'm kind of looking at them going, you've no idea what you're talking about, mate. You're talking nonsense. For people to turn around and say, you guys were behind Spoil the Vote and it was a monumental success, you'd make brilliant politicians. Politician is one of the hardest jobs and most, you know, slated job that goes out there. And I don't know if we could turn around and start a new political party with these people, but what we can do, and which is what we've seen, is that by standing together and being a kind of an organization or being a group of people that will turn around and go, whoa, stop government. We're going to hold you to account here now. I think they would fear that a hell of a lot more than a new political party, because to start a new political party, you need a serious amount of money, obviously. You need grassroots, you need to get in through the councils, and it will take a huge amount of time to develop. But if you have a group and a committee of what we would like to think relatively sane and slightly articulate people to be able to turn around and say, no, listen, government, you're doing this wrong about your immigration. We need to have this. We need to do that. I think, as I said, it's like the kind of wildebeest that's looking to get to the other side of the river. And he's wondering, you know, is there a crocodile in there or not? We're the crocodile and we're most certainly in that river. They just don't know where we are or what we're going to pipe up with next. And that's what has them really worried, because now they see that there's a good chance we might bring 500,000 people that can vote with us. And that's a big worry for the government.
Yeah, there's certainly different ways of doing things. Setting up a new political party. There's so many anti-establishment parties which are set up. They don't have any elected representatives. They don't really seem to go anywhere. It's difficult. You do need funding. You do need expertise. I know that Malachy Steenson is thinking of setting up a party as being soft announcing. I think it's Gráil na Héireann, which he wants to get going. But he's already behind the scenes has got a few councillors together and he has a bit of funding to set it off. But you're right that it is one of the most slated jobs. He's only a councillor and he had somebody threaten to kill him recently. And that person was put in prison, I think, for it's a sentence of 18 months or so. Don't quote me on that. But did you see that in the news? Malachy is only a councillor and people are trying to kill him.
I'm not even a councillor and apparently I'm dead. There's this social media campaign going on that I was brought down by the Kerry health and safety rescue guys, whatever, from Cardiac Hill, that I was dead up there. My restaurant's gone bust. It's an iPass centre. It's a kebab shop. It's all this kind of stuff.
Oh, I saw that on Twitter. Clarity Kebabs or something.
Yeah. And like, I'm laughing away here to myself because what they're trying to do is to, you know, attack the business. And it's actually having the complete opposite effect, because so many people are going, like, what the hell are you at? What are you saying here? This is crap. I'm definitely going to your man when we're down in Killarney. And I'm getting a load more people coming into the restaurant because of it. So belt away, lads, keep doing that. But that just shows you that, I always said, it's like the schoolyard bully. When they can't beat you with their mind and their brains, the only thing left they can do is to try and slate you and tear you down with absolute nonsense. And it shows how absolutely weak and pathetic these individuals are. I hope they're seeing this. It shows you they're probably in their mom's basement with their underpants down around their ankles in a dark room, trying to come up with some kind of way as to how they can attack the ball fat burger flipper down in Killarney. This will get them. We'll put kebab shop, we'll Photoshop, we'll put it up on Google Maps and all this kind of crap. And I'm just going, thanks a million, lads. This is the best advertising I've ever had in my life.
You might start selling kebabs then.
I might do the Killarney kebab special. That's a brilliant idea, actually.
Yeah, well, it could work.
I like it.
Yeah, I suppose another thing about Kerry as well is setting up a political party and trying to get things going. Kerry is very much in the grip of the Healy Rays, as we all know, and the Healy Rays have, from what I see, have not been kind to local business as well. They do profit off in a small way from the asylum industry. They house quite a lot of Ukrainians in their property, and now we have one of the Healy Rays. I think it's Michael is siding with the government to help get their votes across. Do you think the Healy Rays would ever stand a chance of being unseated by a proper anti-establishment, pro-business candidate, or is their grip just too tight?
You can say whatever you want about Michael and Danny and the kids that are involved at council level as well and everything. You can agree with them, you can disagree with them, you can do whatever. But there is absolutely no denying they are an absolute political machine. They are phenomenal at what they do. If you wanted to ring Michael or Danny right now, they'd answer. And if they don't answer, they'll call you back in 10 minutes to say, sorry, I was in the Dáil, we were casting a vote, we were doing something, whatever. But they will always get back to you. If you turn around and say, Michael, I have a pothole outside my house, there's a good chance he'll show up in the van himself with a load of tarmac and stick it in. He goes, I'll get the council to fix that property now, but that'll keep you going for the next week or two. They're a machine. They are phenomenal at what they do. There's absolutely no denying. And I'd go so far as saying, if every county had a Healy Ray, there'd be a hell of a lot less problems in most counties around in the country. But it's kind of, they're brilliant at local politics. National politics, that's a whole other debate. And I think that's the problem with politics. A lot of the videos that I do, I turn around and say, if you want to change politics in this country, well, you, the voter, must change. You can't be expecting to see your minister or your TD showing up at every funeral because, like, obviously the condolences are there. But I mean, asking a minister to be driving up and down to every single funeral, how effective is that? It's pretty futile if you ask me. So we need to change our concept as to what we want from our politicians so that they can deliver and stop demanding, silly little things like the concept of calling your minister or your local TD to say of a petty problem. Like, I get it, but that's not how politics should work. Or else we make an executive level of politics that will actually run the country on a national level and leave them off to do what they need to do. But so a lot of the problems that we have in politics is us ourselves, because we've unrealistic opinions of what a politician should be doing for us when we should have them running at national level.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it.
You're totally right.
Healy Ray's unbelievable political machine.
Yeah, I actually have a story myself about Michael Healy Ray when I happened to be in the Dáil one time and saw Michael leading around a troop of about 20, 30 pensioners. And I asked who I was with at the time, his parliamentary assistant, what's that about? And he goes, oh, Michael does that occasionally. He'll go to the old folks' home and you have them bust up for a tour of the Dáil. And that's the sort of thing which gets him elected. That's what they go home, they tell their grandkids, they tell their kids, oh, Michael brought me for a tour of the Dáil. And I guess if they were ministers, they might necessarily have the time to do that. But certainly whatever they have going, it is a machine, as you call it.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we might leave it there. Thank you for joining me, Paul.
No problems. Thank you very much for the invite. Really, really appreciate it. But again, don't underestimate just how powerful the win spoil the vote was. That's why we're seeing a major shift from our Taoiseach and our Tánaiste, even though our Taoiseach is over in Amazon there and saving the planet with his kind of climate change, even though they cut 8 miles of forestry down so that he could get to the conference centre. But anyway, that's a whole other story for the next time.
Yeah, hopefully for the next time, and hopefully we can have you on again.
Lovely.
Thank you to our subscribers and our audience. Please remember to subscribe to this channel and like this video. What that actually does is if you like the video, it will be recommended to 10 more viewers. So that really helps us a lot. And if you want to get involved in the conversation, please leave a comment down below. This has been Ireland Reports. Thank you.